From the OUTV Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, California, this is Brief News Brief, a brief look at today's trending news topics. Proudly combating the thought police since 2016, here's your host, James Heaney.
I'm James Heaney, and this is your Brief News Briefing. In a grim milestone today, the coronavirus deaths in the U.S. has surpassed the number of Americans killed in the Vietnam War. So in a matter of weeks, more people have died from COVID-19 than in the memorably violent, deadly war that led to the end of the draft in this country. More than 58,300 Americans have died from COVID-19. The Vietnam War, which lasted more than a decade, killed 58,220 Americans. We had the amount of deaths on 9/11 today before I ate lunch. The past couple of weeks have been a 9/11 every day, and now we're closing in on 60,000 Americans dead. Confirmed cases of COVID-19 topped 1 million in the U.S. That's today. These are some big milestone numbers that are shaking themselves out as we reach the end of April. In recent days, a new casualty of the pandemic has been emerging, and that's the American supply of meat. The coronavirus is now endangering the U.S. beef, chicken, and pork supply chain. Worker illnesses has shut down meat processing plants and forced the remaining facilities to slow production to accommodate for the absentee sick employees, and then also to implement social distancing protocols. Tyson Foods warned over the weekend that the U.S. food supply chain is breaking. Sales of plant-based meats are skyrocketing. Demand has outstripped the supply in some places, but none of these plant-based meat facilities so far have been closed because of the coronavirus. I'm not saying that there's a link, but maybe we could put some risk into making some more plant-based meats. Beyond Burger's delicious. President Trump is expected to sign an executive order compelling meat processors. Sorry, just talking about Beyond Burgers is making my mouth water. It truly is delicious. I can't suggest it enough. Nonetheless, Trump is trying to make it so that these meat processors are going to remain open. And this is despite the mounting reports of plant workers' deaths due to COVID-19. Such an order would prevent meat companies from using the most effective weapon available to protect their employees from the coronavirus, which is closing the doors. Trump is using the DPA to force workers back on the job. Now, is this back on the job into unsafe conditions? I imagine so. I don't know how a meat processing plant can make it a safe condition. Legal experts say that they are serious questions about whether this legislation from Trump is actually something that he's authorized to do. It seems to grant broad immunity to businesses. Can Trump order a shuttered manufacturing plant to reopen? Now, if workers stop showing up, what then would happen? Do we enforce a draft? Do we draft employees to work at these meat factories? I guess if it was important enough to have a draft for Vietnam, more people have died here. I don't know. Today in Ohio, the first major test of an almost completely vote-by-mail election is underway. Last month, just hours before the polls were supposed to open, the primary was delayed. Since then, state officials have been navigating election laws and balancing it with the need to protect their citizens and poll workers from the deadly coronavirus. It's a pickle, but we better damn well get it figured out before November, right? Ohio's approach to the election today is heavily dependent on the U.S. Postal Service. You got to get 3 pieces of mail through the mail tubes, I don't know how it works, before you have a vote done. A ballot application, a blank ballot, and a completed ballot that has to be sent back to the powers that be. Ohio's vote is closely being watched as a case study in how to proceed with elections if the pandemic doesn't ease. Now, Wisconsin, on the other hand, well, they proceeded with in-person voting earlier this month. Now, this is an example of what not to do in the pandemic, because now Wisconsin is reporting that they have 50 more people that voted in person or worked the polls that have tested positive for the coronavirus. Now, don't forget that at this point, we really only test the really, really sick people. So that number really is just saying that at least 50 people are deadly ill. We don't know how many people actually have it or caught it. Some governors have suggested that they would consider moving to an all-mail voting system for November. But is that something that the post office can even handle? The post office has been having a hard time in the coronavirus world. USPS leaders believe that the service has been ravaged by the impact of the virus and might run out of money by the end of September unless they get some sort of congressional intervention. Now, Democrats already tried to add USPS to the $2.2 trillion CARES Act last month, but the president made it clear that he was prepared to reject the entire package if it included money to bolster the Postal Service. So now we have no idea what we're going to do in November except for one thing, and that's not vote for Trump. While many states in the country are at different stages in their coronavirus outbreak response, we here in California have been at this social distancing game for over 6 weeks now, and several slow steps seem to be in place towards easing the statewide shutdown order. Now, it all started when the grass started getting cut and the broken trees started getting cleared out. The golf courses opened back up, boats were out and floating in the marina, and now today Governor Gavin Newsom unveiled publicly that California businesses seen as presenting less risk of spreading the coronavirus could open in the near future. We are just a few shorts away from meaningful modifications. 6 weeks in and just 2.5 to go. We can do it, right? We can do it. Okay, but don't get too excited. Newsom's announcement on a 4-phase plan did not come with a guaranteed timetable. The biggest changes to come would first be curbside options for retail locations. It means also reopening manufacturing sites and the reopening of small businesses with few in-person customers. The change would also loosen limits on access to public spaces. I'd assume that means public parks. Particularly notable is the return to school plan. Some K-12 campuses are allowed to offer summer school programs or consider an earlier start to the new school year, as soon as July. Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York also announced a similar phased plan to reopen his state by May 15th. Now, we are not out of the woods yet, but will we ever really be out of the woods? Will we look around one day and really acknowledge, hey, we got out of the woods? Or will we run so hard and so fast to forget the coronavirus tide that when there is a vaccine, everyone will look around and say, woods? What woods? I don't remember a forest.
Tell me the news, newsman, get your newsman, come on, newsman, tell me the news, newsman, get your newsman, come on, newsman, tell me the news, tell me the news, tell me the news, newsman, get your newsman, come on, newsman, tell me the news, news.